Welcome to this online worship service of the White Bear Lake United Methodist Church. My name is Pastor John McBride, and together with Pastor Bill Eves, we thank you for joining us this morning. If you're watching this service on Facebook, whether on Sunday morning or at a different time, we would encourage you to take a moment right now to share this page. That way your friends will have an opportunity to join us as well. It is the mission of our church to provide nourishment for the hungers of life. I know with all the events of the past 2 weeks, some of you this morning are confused, some are angry, some are hurting, some are frightened, and some are mourning. It is our prayer that this service will nourish your soul so you can be the light of hope for all of those you encounter. Let's be in worship together.
We pause for a moment to collect our thoughts and center our hearts as we pray. God, Spirit of power and love, we invite you today to be among us as we, each in our separate places, come to draw near to you. Come near to our chaotic communities to bring new creation into being. Give breath to the voices crying out in anguish, crying out in pain, crying out in despair, crying out in justice, crying out for change, and give us wisdom to distinguish voice from violence. Come near and give us your peace, and not a peace of acquiescence to what is, not a peace that is the silence of complicity, but peace enough so that justice can be done and new community built. Come near and grant us courage of heart, courage enough to let our hearts be broken in sorrow and broken open to new possibilities, courage enough to do the hard work to overcome racism and division. Come near and be the healing presence that we long for, balm in the world's wounds, the spirit of compassion that is needed to fill each heart, the one who is the healer of every ill, the light of each tomorrow. Come near and give us the hope we need to find the way forward, a hope that finds the things that are worth doing and the words that are worth speaking for this time, a hope that trusts in your leading us forward into a future we cannot yet discern, a future that is in your hands. So may we trust in your coming near again today and tomorrow, as those who came before us have trusted. May we put our faith in you and in the best of one another as you change and guide us. And may we rely on the strength you give us to move forward with hope in uncertain times. We ask this in the name of Jesus, who came to bring us your light. Amen.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the power, and the kingdom, and the glory forever. Amen.
Today's scripture is from Luke chapter 16, verses 19 through 31. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen, and who feasted scrumptiously every day. And at his gate lay a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who longed to satisfy his hunger with what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs would come and lick his sores. The poor man died and was carried away to be with the angels and to be with Abraham. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, where he was being tormented, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. He called out, "Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am in agony in these flames." But Abraham said, "Child, remember that during your lifetime you received your good things, and Lazarus in like manner evil things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. Besides all this, between you and us there is a great chasm, so that those who might want to pass from here to you cannot do so, and no one can cross from there to us." He said, "Then, Father, I beg you to send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, that he may warn them, so that they will not also come into this place of torment." Abraham replied, "They have Moses and the prophets. They should listen to them." He said, "No, Father Abraham, but if someone comes to them from the dead, they will repent." He said to him, "If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, neither will they be convinced if someone rises from the dead."
Today we begin a 3-week sermon series on hope. We're based on a book called Hope Rising, How the Science of Hope Can Change Your Life. It's written by Gion, Hellman, and Gwinn. We decided to speak on hope long before the death of George Floyd on Memorial Day, nearly 2 weeks ago. A few days after his death, on May 29th, at a morning news briefing, the police chief, Chief Arredondo, publicly apologized to the Floyd family. But he made an interesting statement. He said, "I know that there is a deficit of hope in our city. I know this department has contributed to that deficit of hope." His statement begs the question, how can you have a deficit of something like hope? Hellman and Gwinn in their book begin with the premise that hope is not just an idea. Hope is not simply an emotion. It is far more than a feeling. It's not a wish or even an expectation. Hope is real. It can be measured, it can rise, and it can fall. You can have an abundance of hope, or you can have a deficit of hope. In their book, Hellman and Gwinn give examples after example of how hope is predictive of both short-term and long-term positive outcomes in people's lives. Rather than use one of theirs, I want to share one of my own. As those who attend our church regularly know, I spent 16 years as a district court judge before my retirement in 2019. I was first appointed to the bench back in 2003. Just before my appointment, then Chief Justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court, Kathleen Blatz, had launched what came to be known as the Children's Justice Initiative. It was rolling out in my county just as I was coming on the bench. No one really wanted to lead the effort. See, child protection cases weren't that glamorous, and so nobody seemed to have any interest in leading this particular initiative. And so the new guy in the black, well, I got the tag and ended up taking it on. Child protection cases were like any other. They're adversarial. Someone had to win and someone had to lose. The cases would bounce from one judge to the next without any continuity between. Each time you would get one of these cases, you would receive volumes of material. I'll never forget the first day I had a child protection calendar, and there were piles of files sitting on my table that morning waiting for me, and I was never able to completely absorb everything that was in those files. So judges became rubber stamps for child welfare workers. And that, of course, contributed to a lack of trust in the child welfare system. Our team began to meet bi-monthly. We gathered all of the stakeholders, all of those involved in child protection matters: county attorney, parents' attorney, child's attorneys, court administration staff, social service workers, and guardians ad litem. The goal of the team was for all the stakeholders to operate through the eyes of the child. The first thing we did was to implement what was known as one judge, one family, so that we didn't shift files from one judge to the next, but the judge who was assigned at the beginning would continue all the way through, so the judge would become familiar with the family and be able to handle things better. At our meetings, we began to work on obstacles that were there that were obstacles to good outcomes for children. And we began to work collaboratively in these bi-monthly meetings. But that collaboration, interestingly enough, moved into the courtroom as well. We started what was known as an intensive family court program, where families would come sometimes every other week before the judge. And everyone, including social services, was equally held accountable. And rather than adversaries, our team began to view themselves as collaborators. And the results were amazing. We dramatically reduced the number of trials we had in the county. In 10 years, I think there were only 2 trials. We had better outcomes for children and families. Parents succeeded with reunification more frequently than they had in the past. And even when obstacles were too great to overcome, parents would come to realize that they had the opportunity to be heard. And they would try and would voluntarily terminate their own rights so that children could have a better life. I have to say that I didn't realize at the time. It never really even connected with me until reading this book. But what made that initiative successful was hope. A shared hope that seeing things through the eyes of the children could improve outcomes for children and families. And guess what? It did. Hope is a real thing. In fact, as many studies have shown, it can be measured. Dr. Joe Belzo, he said that hope is the bridge between the impossible and the possible. Hope is the belief that your future can be brighter and better than your past, and that you actually have a role to play in making it different. Psychologist Rick Snyder focuses on hope. And he suggests that there is an interaction between 3 concepts in defining what hope is. The first is goal, having a goal, something that is obtainable, that you seek for yourself into the future. The next is to have the pathways, or the way power, the means by which you can achieve the goal that you've set for yourself. And the third thing is agency, or willpower, to have the desire to do that what it takes to reach your goal. As Hellman and Gwinn put it, hope is the idea that you have goals you desire to achieve. You can identify pathways toward the goals, and you can direct and sustain your willpower toward the goals and pathways necessary to reach those goals. Research shows that people with high hope do better in life than those with low hope. People with high hope can overcome trauma and setbacks in life. People with high hope contribute to the profits of their employers. In the medical setting, people with high hope respond better to treatment. People with high hope can even tolerate pain better. Hellman and Gwinn suggest that hope is the best predictor of human well-being. But I want to get back to the words of Chief Arredondo. Why is there a deficit of hope in our communities of color here in Minnesota? Patera read the story of the rich man and Lazarus. You realize that that's the only parable where Jesus actually names a character in the parable. None of the other parables does Jesus do that. But in this particular one, he names only the poor man, Lazarus. That Hebrew name means God is my help. And the story is an amazing story. It was this rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen. He would feast scrumptiously every day. But at his gate, there lay this poor man named Lazarus. He was covered with sores, and he longed to be satisfied his hunger with just what would fall from the rich man's table. The poor man died, and he was carried away by the angels to be with Abraham. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, he looked up and he sees Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. And he calls out, "Abraham, send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am in agony in these flames." But Abraham said to him, "Between you and us is this great chasm." And the rich man said, "Then send Lazarus to warn my 5 brothers, so they will not find themselves in torment." Did you catch some things? At his gate, he saw Lazarus. Yet he failed to see Lazarus. He failed to see his suffering. He saw him not as an equal, but as someone to do his bidding. Even after Lazarus is with Abraham, he asked Abraham to send Lazarus to do his work. Even after Abraham tells him there's this great chasm between where you are and where we are, he still thinks that Lazarus should do his bidding. The great chasm is his belief that he is better than Lazarus. He fails to see that Lazarus was a human being just like him, a human being with equal dignity and equal worth. Racism is best understood as a belief that I am superior to another person simply because of my race, because of the color of my skin. So why is there a deficit of hope in our community of color? Like the rich man, the majority in Minnesota failed to see the suffering of those at our gate. The people at the gate have a goal of a better life. They have the willpower to achieve it, but they are denied the way power to have their hope fulfilled. Minneapolis is one of the most livable cities in America. Minnesota is frequently touted as one of the best places to live if you're white. The typical black family in Minneapolis earns less than half as much as a typical white family. In percentage terms, a typical black household earns only 44% as much as a typical white one. Of the nation's 100 largest metropolitan areas, only Milwaukee has a larger gap between black and white earnings. Homeownership among black people is 1/3 the rate of white families. Only Madison, Wisconsin and Scranton, Pennsylvania have larger gulfs than Minneapolis. On average, Minnesota performs well compared to all other states on standardized test scores, graduation rates, and college readiness. According to a report last year, while 95.9% of white adults in the Twin Cities metropolitan area have a high school diploma, one of the highest figures in the United States, just 82% of black adults do, a number below the national average. A new report of the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis finds that Minnesota is one of the worst states in the country for educational achievement gaps. The NAACP warned in a report just last December, if the growing disparities in education, economics, criminal justice are not addressed immediately, our children will not have a future. This is systemic. It's not just a case-by-case issue. I know that there are some of you out there that are saying, well, no one gave me a handout. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. You know what? I can relate to that. My mother never went to high school. My father didn't finish. I grew up in a blue working class neighborhood of Ferguson, Missouri. I had a learning disability that I had to overcome. I studied hard, I worked hard, and I earned what I have achieved. But here's the difference. It may be that few gave me a leg up in life, but I didn't have anyone with a knee on my neck holding me down either. I am so amazed by the lies and false narratives that have been advanced by our political leaders. I want to use one example. The National Security Advisor, Robert O'Brien, on Sunday, denied in an interview that systemic racism exists across the nation's police forces. He argued instead that a few bad apples give the impression of racism. I'm sorry, but anyone who thinks that the criminal justice system is not biased is simply ignorant of the facts. Now, I'm not going to speak about the police force. I'm going to speak to what I do know. The last 3 years as a judge, I was asked to lead a judicial branch initiative to reduce racial and economic bias in making pretrial release decisions by judges. The reason for all of that effort is that research had shown that 50% of pretrial detainees are African American or Latino, even though they make up less than 30% of the population. Research showed that on average, African American men received a bail setting 35% higher than white males, even with the same crime and the same criminal history. That same research showed that Latino Hispanic men, their bail was set 19% higher, even though they were charged with the same crime and had the same criminal history. Why is that important? Defendants that are held in detention are 3 times more likely to go to prison than those who are released on pretrial. And their prison sentences, they're twice as long. Now, I'm not saying that all judges are explicitly racist or that all cops are intentionally racist. But the truth is, and the evidence is overwhelming, that there is implicit bias in our criminal justice system. An implicit bias is an unconscious attribution of a particular quality to a member of a certain social group. Implicit biases are shaped by experience and based on learned associations between particular qualities and social categories, including race. And if we don't take intentional steps to recognize and respond to our implicit biases, inequality within the criminal justice system becomes systemic. To argue otherwise is nonsense and literally out of touch with reality. I'm sure that Mr. O'Brien never had to have the talk with his children about how not to get killed if you get pulled over by the police. And the likelihood that his kids would have been pulled over in the first place is minuscule compared to young black males in our community. His attitude, and unfortunately the attitude of too many of our political leaders, is like the rich man with Lazarus supping at his gate and failing to even see the reality before them. Unfortunately, just like hope, that ignorance is real and is a consequence of Americans' original sin. Those who have the way power must stop getting in the way of hope for the deficit of hope to be overcome. But getting out of the way is not as easy as you might think, because there's not only a deficit of hope, there is a deficit of trust. And that deficit of trust is real, and it is justifiable. Friends, it is the mission of our church to provide nourishment for the hungers of life, right here in our cities, right here in our state. There is a hunger for justice. There is a hunger for equality. There is a hunger to be seen at our gate. And there is a hunger for hope. So I want to leave you with a question today. How are we, as a community of faith, willing to nourish those hungers?
For our online greeter segment today, I'm here with Grace Olson. I want to introduce her to everyone. Grace is our Eli Project intern for this summer. The Eli Project is a program of the Minnesota Annual Conference for young people to explore ministry as a calling. And so they place interns in churches for the summer to work together with congregations and learn together. So Grace, welcome, and tell us a little about yourself.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, my name's Grace. I am currently a student at the University of Minnesota. I'm studying developmental psychology, and I'll be graduating in the fall. I'm trying to think a little more about me. I was born in Memphis, but moved to Elk River when I was 2 years old. I grew up in that area, moved a couple of times, and was kind of raised in a Lutheran church nearby. I have an older brother named Matthew. My parents are Larry and Allison. We have a dog named River, who I love. And yeah, I'm super excited to get involved with the Eli Project and get to know the congregation at White Bear Lake.
Great. Do you want to tell us about where you're living this summer?
Yeah. So you can kind of see it behind me. I live on the University of Minnesota campus in an intentional Christian community through an organization based on the U of M campus. So I've got anywhere between 5 and 9 roommates, depending on what time of the summer it is. But we try and kind of weave in daily prayer and other community rhythms into what we're doing. So, yeah.
That's great. Tell us, what are some of your hopes for this summer internship at White Bear Lake United Methodist?
Yeah, hopes for the internship. Yeah, I would say definitely since freshman year, I have been interested in pastoral ministry and have wanted to explore that call, but for various reasons, I haven't given the time to really discerning. So I'm hopeful that this summer I can really dive in to listening to the Lord and discerning whether he wants me to pursue pastoral ministry, and also just to learn more about the Bible, about the Word, and to kind of see all of the different inner workings of ministry and how I can support that.
Great. Well, Grace is going to be with us here through August 9th, and you'll be seeing her online and hopefully in person at some point. So welcome, and we look forward to having you be a part of our summer.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I look forward to being here.
Thank you for joining us this morning. I want to remind you that each night at 7, Pastor Bill has a prayer time on Facebook, so please join him. Now, we have left you with a question today, but we want to assure you that we will not leave you without some help in answering it. It's our plan to continue this discussion this summer in hopes of discovering what part we may play in healing our community. But now, as you go from this time of worship, know this. Wherever you go, God is already there, surrounding you with mercy and guiding you with love. So go with joy, courage, and hope knowing God is with you. Amen.